Yeah, I know what you're thinking. And yes, it is a stupid haircut. Hey guys, and welcome to this week's From the Vault. This is take 3000 for this. It's been a hard day. I feel really drained from been doing so much editing, so much filming, but I'm almost caught up and sorted with it, so it's okay. So of course this week, as I said in last week's video, I'm going to be talking to you about a comic book project that I am involved in. But first, wanted to quickly comment with this little tidbit of news about the totally awesome new Hulk, who it turns out is going to be Amanda's Cho. I was never a massive fan of the character, but apparently his backstory and the Hulk story and everything's going to blend nicely together, and we still get to see Bruce Banner as well, which is cool. So, and with Hulk being my favourite character, it was a big deal for me, so I'm interested to see what they're going to do with it. Anyway, this project is something I thought I would tell you about on this, and as the ball gets rolling with it, it will probably pop up on episodes of Just In. But what I'm working on is a comic book. Surprise. It all stemmed from just me and a group of my friends when we were younger. We'd invent superheroes and stuff that would be wouldn't it be awesome to be, and this kind of thing. It was kind of, the characters were there, but they were silly characters really that we'd made up. But we took some of the general ideas and stuff, did me, Seth, and Miles, and we just fleshed it all out. And we created heroes, villains, the stories, and started putting everything together, getting all our notes written up. And now it was kind of we spent years working on these ideas, and then over the last few months things have really started to pick up. And where I'm at the moment now is, I think Seth's going to lend a hand, but not too much because he's got a lot of other stuff going on, like music stuff and everything. Miles is going to be doing the writing with me. Dowie also will be lending a hand once I need to get a spreadsheet of my notes and send them over to him for him to have a read of. And then Pete is working on art at the moment, which is cool, but ideally I'd like to get to a point where we have maybe 4 writers and 4 artists. The reason for that is because we have 13 books planned out. And in front of me now I've got, it's a little sheet of paper that's got all the 13 books written down it and the big events and everything that's going to happen in them. And that's 13 books, but there's going to be 5 titles. And the title's going to be Mirage, where we'll be seeing obviously Mirage himself, and we'll be seeing Soundwave. Mirage can control light and has expert combat skills and everything and more. And Soundwave can control, obviously his name's a dead giveaway. Then we have Eve, and Eve can control nature, and Eve is the Eve as in Adam and Eve, but we'll talk more about that in a bit. We have Animal, who has super strength, heightened senses, and other more secret powers that I won't get into. And finally we have Dread, and Dread is actually a son of Satan, and he can play on people's fears and control shadows and do other demony things. And then the 5th title is Vagabonds, which is the big epic team up thing. So I'd like to be able to have 4 artists and 4 writers, so 1 working on Eve, 1 working on Mirage, 1 working on Animal, 1 working on Dread, and then have those teams and then all collaborate on Vagabonds. The series itself is overall title is called Our World. I don't want to give loads away because it's there'd be no point in me sitting down and going, this is going to happen, all these characters are in it, here are all the secrets. But the only other another character I want to mention who also appears in Mirage is a guy called Officer Lance Bowen, who is Soundwave's dad, and he's a policeman, and he's going to be a big part of it as well. The Vagabonds team itself is those 5 main characters I mentioned, but apart from Dread's not in it, Dread has his own team, which props up in his volume 2. As I said about Eve, there are some big religious concepts in the book. I'm not religious myself. It's just an idea that we wanted to do and a story we were excited about. And it's basically the idea that you have Earth as a planet, obviously, and then Heaven and Hell are both planets as well. Hell has 7 rings around it, which are the 7 sins, and Heaven has 7 moons around it, which are the 7 virtues. And they will play like a massive part throughout the story and will help us like meet some characters, and there's just a lot to it. Our main characters have their own title, so they'll be going on their own adventures, so it's kind of like they're still important stories. They will push towards the bigger events and the overall plot and everything, but they feel much more like on their own. So we'll see them dealing with villains and whatnot, obviously. We've made a bunch of villains, so I'm not going to mention them all, but there are a few that I can mention that appear nearer the start. We have Dark Magic, who is a guy who's like a sorcerer and everything. But his deal is he got his powers from making a deal with a guy called the Fiend, who's also a villain. And the Fiend is Dread's brother. And the idea behind it was you've got Damien, who's the Fiend, and Aaron, who's Dread, and Satan wanted to create the perfect son. So in order to create something that is pure evil in the Fiend, the good, that like tiny bit of good that is in people had to go somewhere, so it ends up creating Dread. So Dread's like, he was brought up in pure evil, but he's actually good. We like to make a lot of links like that and try to make characters to connect to each other and whatnot as much as they can. I also said about the 7 sins, the rings. Well, they each have like a guardian, so the 7 sins appear as characters with powers and everything. We have a character as well called Amgwyn, who's like, she's from an alien race, but they're able to do like possession and stuff. Again, she's a character whose role seems small but will become more apparent later on. It's difficult doing this because part of me wants to just tell you everything, but I want to give you guys enough to spark your interest and whatnot, but not so much that you're going to be like, you just told us the whole fucking story. We also have a character called Royal Mind, who's a telepath, and a guy called Lord Lynch, who has an interesting power as well. You can try and guess what it is, but it's not, you probably can't guess it from his name. But they're like a duo that travel around together, and they're some of like probably my 2 favourite villains, I would say, that we have, and they're going to be turning up in Mirage Volume 1. But it's kind of like we have, with the books, the 13th book, the final book, it ends the story quite well, and it's like, it is one of those things where this big ending event, like, it's kind of, this is what it's all been leading up to kind of feeling. So like, all the books do link in, so there might be an event that happens in one book and it seems a bit random, but then it will be explained 2 books later, and a lot of crisscrossing like that. We also have Bounty, which is like a villain team. It's run by a mysterious, shady figure, and they have bounty hunters, because we thought that was just cheesy enough to work. They are not directly responsible for a lot of the villains, but they're kind of like the established force of, we help villains, like if they need money or anything like that, we'll help them out, and then villains will kind of work with them. And then we have Sanction, which are like the superhero police kind of deal, and it's run by a guy called Boris Wyvern, and it's like, I mean, the whole thing takes place inside Black Springs City, which is a fictional city that we have, which is based in the UK. And within Black Springs City, like, there's the Crystal Dell prison, which is run by Sanction, and there's stuff like there's the Wyvern Bridge, which comes from like Boris Wyvern's family, and they're a very well-known family and all this kind of crap. But Boris Wyvern's very eccentric. He's like a very keen detective, and he's got a sweet tooth, and he's just very in-your-face, bouncy around kind of guy. He works with a lot of superheroes, like we have Rush, who has super speed. We have Scarlet Slayer, who can like change his size and use his bones as weapons. And they just are, like superhero police who are more equipped to deal with these massive matters and stuff. And like, they will work with the police and the police work with them, but obviously it's the classic police are kind of reluctant to do so sort of thing. It's funny because even though we've only sort of just properly made a start on getting these books written and drawn up and everything like that, and it's, as I said, about how it's all building up to this last event in book 13, but I kind of keep looking and going, but I can see where it goes beyond that. I've already started thinking of new characters, new teams, new villains, new places for it to go, new plot elements to be introduced to upset the apple cart and whatnot. With regards to writing, it was kind of, it's a book full of twists in that I wanted it to keep people on their toes, for people to keep guessing, for surprises in those big reveals and everything, and just it be a constant like roller coaster ride. And it was nice when we could look at a character and flesh them out and go, how can we make you more interesting? Oh, what if you're connected to this guy in this way? And it was a way of making everything in a neat little package with bow included and everything, but making it interesting at the same time. I also like the idea more of, with Origins, like, sometimes Origins will be like, you start reading the book and it's Origin, like, it's just Origin all the way until they get powers or whatever. But I like the idea of, you jump in, here is your superhero, they are already established, they're fighting crime and what have you, and then, yeah, the origins will come more in flashbacks. With the art, I mean, Pete's been working so hard with trying out different styles. Like, does he want to draw manga? Does he want to draw it more cartoony, more lifelike? So he's been doing different shading techniques, dot shading and all the rest of it. I think he's drawn the first couple of pages like constantly, so many times, which is it, but it's nice to see that kind of work going into it. I think we're sticking with the whole just pencil and paper and then like inking it over with black ink afterwards, but probably not doing colour because we don't have the resources for it. And obviously it takes a lot longer. One thing I will show you is, this was drawn for me at Comic-Con, and it was kind of like, this guy was like, I'll draw your superhero, you describe him to me, talk to me, and I'll draw your superhero. And so, oh no, he was saying about how he draws superheroes. So if you want to see Spider-Man fight Wolverine, yeah, pay me money and I'll do that for you. But I was like, can you draw my own hero? And it was so cool because it was the first moment where I was properly like, this is happening, this is definitely happening, because to see a character that's in your head drawn up, I mean, this is the image that he drew for me, this is Soundwave, and it was just to see a creation come alive and everything. So this is also, I showed this to Pete and I was like, well, if you want some inspiration, I'm not saying just copy this, but here's some inspiration for you. And I think Soundwave was the first guy he drew. He's actually drawn up like most of the main characters now. I don't have them here to show you, but it'll be a nice surprise, and I'll probably on my Facebook release images. So like, we'll get teaser images up and everything as we get the ball rolling. But from obviously this picture you can see, like, as far as costume design goes, the costumes are supposed to look more handmade kind of thing, you know, a little bit crappier than usual. He's got like big like steampunk type goggles on with like little headphone sockety things, and he's a tech whiz, so he was one of those guys that struggles to control his powers, so he's able to build tech and build a kind of suit, but it's not really, it's just his ordinary clothes with pipes and all this kind of stuff in. Just helps him control his powers. And then yeah, he's got like just like a scarf to cover his mouth and nose, all this kind of stuff. But it was also important for me that in the book they dealt with everyday problems. So they'll deal with, you know, a dying relative or relationships and all this kind of stuff. Because I was like, I don't want to just go all out, all action kind of thing. They need their secret identities. They need that other life. It was difficult because it is the superhero genre, but I was kind of the guy that's like, if I want to throw a vampire or a werewolf in or go full sci-fi or whatever, I'm doing it. Which is why we have like demons and angels and monsters and aliens and all this kind of cool stuff. And like, speaking of monsters, it's just reminded me, because there's a creature called an Androdraken, which we have in our story, and they're involved in an event that's just referred to as the Dark War. And it's one of these things where it's an event that is mentioned, that is talked about, but it's kind of like, oh, you know, I was kind of sat thinking, I'd actually like to see that event and see what happens and everything. And it involves Mirage back in his early days. That's the other thing as well, is there are little events like that where I'm thinking, I don't want it in the main story, but it could be like a other adventure books. We might have these 13 books, but if we're like, what if that villain and that villain fought? So like, rather than squeezing that villain fight somewhere into the story, we could be like, we could do an issue or two and you will see those villains fight, and it's just a special extra little thing, which is why as well more writers, more artists, all this kind of stuff would be cool. And I mean, Dowie started writing up his own comic book, and he gave me his notes, and I was kind of sat thinking like, because I'd already planned out the story, I don't know what to do with these characters, but it was kind of like, Dowie, take your characters, we'll share the same space, the same universe, and they'll do their thing, and then that's another angle as well, is this whole other kind of side and place, or I don't know if we'll make it as complicated as multiversing. And also, like, yeah, Soundwave doesn't have his own book, which may be something people are thinking. But he's like the young sidekick character for Mirage, and not in a creepy Robin way either. But this is just a project that I am so excited about. Like, I love talking about it, and I'm just vigorously trying to get my notes finished, because as soon as I get my notes finished, I just need to organise myself, because I've just got sheets of paper like this all over everywhere, and it makes it more complicated when it comes to writing and when it comes to trying to discuss ideas with people. So I'm getting them all tidied up, written up properly and in full, so I'll be happy once that's done. And it's like I said, I'll post up teasers and stuff on my Facebook page. See, this is usually where I'd do the verdict, but I can't really do the verdict, apart from it's awesome. So it's just kind of like, what do you guys think from what I've explained? Is it cool or not? Probably not. Which hand was not? But just leave a comment. Obviously, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. Subscribe to show your support, because it brings a tear to my eye. Down in the description below is the link for my Facebook and my Twitter, news about competitions, and there's the Comic Comments playlist, so you can go back and watch any episode that you like. Yeah, I think set's looking pretty funky. I'm enjoying it, with actually having comic books, superhero DVDs and stuff in the background. Anyway guys, that'll be it for this one. It's like I said, there is probably so much more to tell you, but I thought I will start somewhere and I will add more news and updates and stuff. I mean, I will just say now, it's a slow going process, but of course it's going to be when it's like I said, there's only like 2 or 3 of us writing and then 1 person drawing at the moment, and it's a lot of work. It really is. So it is going to be a slow going process. It's not going to be, oh well, in a week's time we're going to have volume 1 for you. Because we said as well, what we might do is kind of write and draw the volume, because the plan is really that our 4 titles for our superheroes, they're going to have 2 volumes each, and then Vagabonds is going to have 4 or 5 volumes. It will be released, so it will go like Mirage, Eve, Animal, Dread, Vagabonds, Mirage, Animal, Vagabonds, etc, etc. So we'll break it up like that. So we'll have like, yeah, volume drawn up and then split it into issues. So, and we're going to try it that way. We'll see where it goes. Anyway, I will catch you all in Just In, which I'm just about to film.